Such is life, sir.
And second chances.
You no longer need the services of a concierge.
The movie kicks off with John Wick in full-on training mode. Enter the Bowery King, who hands him a fresh new suit and asks if he's ready for what's coming. The scene suddenly shifts to the middle of the desert, where John is hot on the heels of 3 horsemen. He wastes no time, taking them down one by one. The Elder watches the whole thing go down. And when John finally gets to him, he demands his freedom and his ring back. But the Elder isn't having it. He tells John that the only peace he'll ever find is in death.
Escapes the table.
John, being John, doesn't hesitate and puts 2 bullets in him. Back at the high table, things get messy. A guy called the Harbinger shows up at the Continental Hotel, handing over an envelope to Karen and demanding a meeting with the manager.
Please.
Winston is alerted, and soon enough, the Harbinger drops a bombshell. The high table has decided to strip the Continental of its status, giving its new enforcer, the Marquis, absolute authority. He hands Winston an hourglass, giving them just 1 hour to clear out. When Winston and Karen finally meet the Marquis, he makes it clear he's here to clean up the mess, blaming Winston for John Wick's actions. Before the final grains of sand fall in the hourglass, the Continental is blown to pieces. Winston is stripped of his power, and in a shocking moment, the Marquis shoots Karen.
That none of us are above it.
Quick pause to pay respects. Lance Reddick. The incredible actor who played Karen sadly passed away at 61. Rest in peace, legend. Meanwhile, over in Paris, we meet Kane, a blind assassin who's pulled back into the chaos. He's given a chilling ultimatum by the Marquis. Either he takes out John Wick, or his daughter pays the price.
That's not for you to decide.
With no real choice, Kane takes the job, even though he and John go way back. Meanwhile, over in Japan, the Osaka Continental is buzzing with tension. A bounty hunter, known as the Tracker, shows up with his loyal dog. Akira, the concierge and daughter of the hotel manager Shimizu, senses trouble brewing because of John's presence. Shimizu, however, reassures her that they've done nothing wrong.
Will be met with our grace.
But when John appears, Shimizu warns him that killing the Elder was a major mistake. He also breaks the bad news. Karen is dead. John is visibly shaken, but he knows there's no turning back.
Given any thought to where this ends?
Before long, a team from the high table arrives, led by Kane. They demand access to the hotel, suspecting it's harboring John. Shimizu plays it cool, agreeing on one condition: they surrender their weapons. Of course, things quickly go south, and all hell breaks loose. Arrows fly, swords clash, and bullets rain down as the Osaka Continental becomes a battleground. John and Akira fight like demons, cutting down wave after wave of enemies. Kane proves that being blind doesn't slow him down one bit. He absolutely destroys anyone who crosses his path. But the high table's forces are relentless. Akira is wounded, and her father sacrifices himself to give her a chance to escape. Kane, showing a shred of mercy, lets her go. John manages to slip away, but the bounty on his head has now skyrocketed to $20 million, enough to get every assassin on the planet hunting him down. In the chaos, he crosses paths with the Tracker, who decides they should work together. The Tracker's dog also proves to be a beast in battle, taking out enemies left and right. Back in New York, Winston and the Bowery King plot their next move. Winston suggests John challenge the Marquis to a one-on-one duel, an old-school, high-table-sanctioned fight that must be honored.
All the resources of the table are at his disposal.
But before John can even think about that, he has unfinished business in Berlin. John's return to his old crime family isn't exactly a warm reunion. They're pissed at him for bringing trouble their way and nearly kill him. But when John tells them about his plan to duel the Marquis, they agree to help, on one condition.
had to kneel in front of the man who murdered my father.
He has to take out a man who murdered one of their own. John doesn't hesitate. He needs their backing, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to secure it. Kane walks into the room, and the Kingpin can't help but laugh. John has been betrayed by his own family. They sold him out to save their own skins. Now it's a standoff. Kane and the Kingpin have their guns aimed at each other when another guest arrives, the Tracker. He takes a seat, making it clear he's here for the same reason. They all want to be the one to take out John, but instead of shooting, they decide to settle it with a game of cards. When the dealer somehow pulls out an impossible five of a kind, John doesn't waste a second. He slices him. Chaos erupts. Gunfire fills the air, and John fights his way into the club, taking down every man who dares step in his path. He eventually finds the Kingpin and chases him, forcing him off the stairs to his death. As proof, John yanks out one of his teeth before heading back to the church. His family welcomes him back and holds a ceremony for his return. Meanwhile, Winston enters a room where the Marquis looks genuinely shocked to see him. Winston hands over the duel notice, laying down the terms. If John wins, he gains his freedom, Winston gets his title back, and the hotel will be rebuilt at the High Table's expense. Marquis smirks and reminds Winston that as John's second, he either walks away victorious or dies with him.
And why would I accept this?
John is brought to a table where he and the Marquis flip cards to decide the time, place, and weapon for the duel. The verdict? Pistols at sunrise. But the Marquis pulls a power move. He won't fight himself. Instead, he substitutes Kane to take his place. As John walks away, Kane refuses to be the Marquis pawn, but the stakes are too high. If he wins, he and his daughter go free. If he loses, she suffers. John returns to the church and finds Kane waiting for him. They share a rare, heartfelt conversation about the people they love. Kane makes it clear, John is a good friend, but if it comes down to him or his daughter, he's choosing his daughter.
My daughter's not.
John nods, understanding, and bids him farewell. Later, John meets the Bowery King at an abandoned station, who hands him a sleek new suit, reminding him that whether he's getting married or buried, he needs to look his best. At the same time, the Marquis isn't taking any chances. He orders his men to ensure John never makes it to the duel. The bounty on John's head skyrockets to $26 million, and the city is put on high alert. Every assassin is gunning for him. The radio station broadcasts his location, and suddenly, he's a moving target. Crews gear up, and a hunt begins. John tells the Bowery King he needs a gun, and he hands him a pistol with a 21-round mag and all kinds of fancy upgrades. John is impressed. With no other option, John gets on a boat to get as close to the church as possible. But as soon as he steps onto land, the radio alerts every assassin nearby. Within seconds, they're swarming him. The fight kicks off hard. John takes out a few guys before getting hit by a car. He recovers, eliminates the driver, and is promptly rammed by another vehicle. Instead of being frustrated, he decides he actually likes the idea of using cars as weapons. He hijacks a vehicle and starts mowing down enemies, but his location keeps getting updated. More assassins pull up, and John pulls some insane driving stunts, spinning donuts while gunning people down. Eventually, his car is flipped, forcing him to fight on foot. The Marquis right-hand man is right on his tail, and their shootout quickly turns into a brutal fist fight. John gets thrown onto a car, then dishes out the same treatment in return. Gunfire continues as assassins flood the area. Then, the Tracker arrives, ready to claim the bounty. He and John engage in a heated fight, but the situation changes when the Marquis guy aims his gun at the Tracker's dog. Instead of saving himself, John takes the shot to protect the dog. The Tracker is stunned. John has honor. He backs off, realizing this isn't just a job anymore. John keeps moving, but the radio announces his location again. He's running out of time. He fights through waves of enemies, taking them out floor by floor like a video game boss battle. Just when he reaches the top, he gets thrown all the way back down. Exhausted and bleeding, he looks up, 3 minutes left. Kane arrives just in time, helps him up, and together, they fight their way to the top. They work seamlessly, cutting through enemies like a deadly duo. The Marquis right-hand man comes for John again, but this time, John is done playing. The Tracker watches, debating his next move, then looks at his dog. The Tracker walks off, letting his dog mark its territory on the fallen enemy. John barely makes it in time for sunrise. The tracker takes a front row seat, eager to see how this ends. John and Kane remove their bulletproof vests, pick up their pistols, and prepare to duel. "See you in the next life," Kane says. They take their positions and fire. Kane gets hit in the shoulder. They reload, step closer, and fire again. This time, John takes a bullet to the shoulder and Kane gets one in the stomach. It's down to the final shot. The air is thick with tension as they load their last bullets. John, bleeding out, remains silent as Winston watches him closely. The tracker, now emotionally invested, looks on. The Marquis, thinking he's won, arrogantly steps in, ready to finish the job. He takes Kane's gun, loads it, and aims at John. But Winston calls him out. John never fired his last shot. The realization hits too late. John pulls the trigger and delivers a fatal headshot to the Marquis. The tracker laughs, knowing John played the long game. The Harbinger confirms it. John is free. Kane and his daughter are free. Winston gets reinstated, and the hotel will be rebuilt. Their business is done. Kane calls John his brother, and John simply tells him, "You owe me one." Winston and John share a final conversation. John, weak from blood loss, asks Winston, "Take me home." Winston nods, trying to hold back his emotions. As John stares at the sunrise, he whispers Helen's name. Slowly, he collapses. Later, at a quiet cemetery, Winston, the Bowery King, and John's dog stand before his grave, right beside Helen's. Winston, shattered, places a hand on the tombstone and whispers, "Goodbye, my son." And with that, they walk away. But the story isn't over. In a post-credit scene, Kane walks toward his daughter with a bouquet, smiling for the first time in forever. But Akira is there too, a knife in hand. As she moves closer, the screen cuts to black. Thanks for tuning in. If you love epic movie breakdowns, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more.